Relations between India and Canada have significantly deteriorated and will require some time to mend. In the latest update, another Khalistani extremist named Sukhdev Singh was killed in Canada. He had fled Punjab and entered Canada in 2017 using a forged passport. He was shot by unidentified individuals in Winnipeg, Canada, in what appears to be a gang war. Criminal gangs often engage in rivalries and gang wars. The manner in which Canada is providing protection to anti-India elements bears a striking resemblance to Pakistan's approach. In Pakistan, the military promotes anti-India activities as a means to maintain control over the country. Similarly, it appears that the Trudeau government, in its pursuit of retaining power, is offering protection to those attempting to undermine India's integrity. We have witnessed countries like Pakistan supporting terrorism for their own strategic interests. Alarmingly, Canada is now being seen openly supporting terrorism and separatism. Pakistan is usually known for harboring networks involved in drug and human trafficking within India, sheltering radical elements on its soil, exporting terrorism, and attempting to destabilize India. Regrettably, all these actions are beginning to resemble the state policy of Canada as well. Did you ever envision that Canada would follow the path of Pakistan? Sukhdev Singh was among India's most wanted criminals, deeply implicated in numerous criminal activities, including grave charges such as murder. The puzzling question that arises is, how did he manage to gain entry so easily into Canada using a fake passport? These circumstances certainly draw attention to the similarities between Canada and Pakistan, particularly when it comes to providing shelter to criminals fleeing from India and subsequently working against Indian interests. The connection between Pakistan and Canada becomes even more apparent when one considers that Pakistan's ISI funds anti-India activities within Canada and provides support to Khalistanis in their efforts to destabilize India. It will be of great interest to observe how the Canadian government responds to the murder of Sukhdev Singh. Khalistan-Pakistan connection is well documented in history, with Khalistani militants receiving substantial support from Pakistan, leading to significant unrest in India during the 1980s and 1990s. Given this historical context, India cannot afford to take Khalistani activities lightly. The memory of the 1985 Kanishka bombing, among other incidents, serves as a stark reminder of the potential consequences of such activities. As disastrous as Trudeau's visit to India was, his government's decision-making has been equally problematic. In an attempt to salvage his declining popularity and cater to local voters, he hastily acted without waiting for the completion of the investigation into the Nijjar murder. This led to the expulsion of India's diplomat based merely on allegations. Trudeau's narrow victory in the 2021 election, with support from Khalistan sympathizer Jagmeet Singh, has left him reliant on his support to maintain his government's position. Consequently, Trudeau finds himself compelled to take a pro-Khalistani stance, which inadvertently translates into an anti-India stance. This explains why Trudeau has interfered in India's internal affairs, including making statements about the Farm Bill's protests and the actions taken against Khalistani leader Amritpal Singh. The extent of influence that Khalistanis hold over Trudeau is evident from a 2018 report. In that report, the Trudeau government initially referred to Sikh extremism and the Khalistan movement as threats to Canada. However, due to significant backlash, a revised version was released that omitted any reference to Sikh extremism. So, as long as the current government remains in power in Canada, it seems unlikely that any substantial action will be taken against anti-India elements. Even when Sikh extremists openly threaten to eliminate top Indian leadership or advocate for India's disintegration. Because according to Trudeau, such actions fall within the realm of freedom of speech. On one hand, Trudeau attends the G20 summit and speaks about the need to prevent violence and hatred. On the other hand, he lends support to Khalistanis who propagate violence and hatred within his own country. While Khalistanis engage in a Kill India campaign within Canada, Hindu temples face repeated attacks, and Indian consulates and High Commission are vandalized, the Trudeau government seems to forget its responsibility to prevent violence and hatred. Using lofty ideals like freedom of speech, freedom of expression, and freedom of conscience cannot justify support for terrorism. Canada didn't need to create this mess in the first place. There were strong defense ties with India and a mutually beneficial economic partnership. However, the Khalistan movement was allowed to thrive in the country for political gains, leading to the deterioration of relations with India. It is crucial to recognize that the relationship did not deteriorate on its own. Canada actively contributed to this decline. Canada's support for Khalistan is a short-sighted move, and it fails to acknowledge the long-term harm it may cause. The rise of Khalistanis could exacerbate issues of organized crime, drug and human trafficking, which would also affect Canada in the long run. This situation brings to mind Hillary Clinton's statement regarding Pakistan. You cannot keep a snake in your backyard and expect it to bite only your neighbor. In essence, if you harbor a threat, it is only a matter of time before it turns on you. Those whom Canada is currently protecting under the guise of freedom of speech may eventually pose a significant threat to Canada itself. It is important to understand that allowing violence, separatism, and terrorism on one's soil in the name of freedom of expression is not a sustainable or responsible approach. India holds great importance as a counterweight to China, making it an important partner for the West. Therefore, the likelihood of Canada convincing its key allies, such as the United States, the United Kingdom, Australia, and New Zealand, to side with Canada over India is quite slim. In fact, India's significance to these countries far surpasses that of Canada. Notably, the UK and Australia are handling the Khalistan issue with greater maturity compared to Canada. The diplomatic crisis with Canada has not affected India's free trade deal with the UK, and it is highly probable that the American president will be India's guest at the upcoming Republic Day. Australia and New Zealand are also likely to maintain a balanced approach, avoiding actions that could harm their own interests as Trudeau did. And without the support of these key allies, Canada's diplomatic leverage will be limited. If the allegations against India are not substantiated, Canada may find itself in an embarrassing situation. Now that Canada has decided to go the Pakistan way, FATF proceedings should be initiated against Canada's terror financing routes. The India-Canada Free Trade Agreement is now on hold indefinitely. In response to the escalating anti-India activities, hate crimes, and violence within Canada, the Indian government has issued an advisory to warn its citizens. Given the current situation, it is advisable to reconsider travel plans to Canada. Furthermore, India has temporarily suspended visas for Canadian citizens. Such suspensions are rare and reflect the severe strain in India-Canada relations. If Canada were to consider a similar move, it could have significant repercussions, especially considering the substantial number of Indian students currently studying in Canada, over 3 lakh in total. These students make a substantial contribution to Canada's economy. The next steps Canada takes will be of great interest to observe.